Hello and welcome everyone to another episode of Aligned. Today's introduction is a little bit different than what you're all used to, a little bit more dynamic, a little bit more exciting, because I'm here in beautiful Switzerland out on the French side of the country. So I have these sweeping mountains behind me. In fact, I'm actually staying right underneath a castle right up there. I'm living out my princess dream. Not that I ever really had princess dreams. As a child, I was very much a tomboy. So, anywho, I'm having them now and I'm living them now. And oh my gosh, these last few episodes, we've spoken so much about environment and about how being in the wrong environment, as well as being in the right environment, can change your constitution in such profound ways. And I can confirm, having been in a very dense place for the last few months and speaking about it, now having been here for just 2 weeks, and I feel like a different version of myself. And I know that it's quite simply just the environment that I'm in. And being in my shores environment, even though you might look at this landscape and just see mountains and valleys and all of that, but shores really represent transition points. They represent, being on the edge of two different environments coming to meet together. And when I'm here, I have this huge horizon to look out upon, and there's a river right down the road. I have mountains here. I have valleys, and I can kind of like dip my toes in each one accordingly. And my whole nervous system relaxes. Every cell in my body gets to take an exhale, and it just feels really nice after being in a place where it just felt like work. It's like you wake up in the morning and already it's like I'm almost swimming through the air as if it's this like density. And then I'm here and everything's light and free and breezy and easy. So again, those environments look different for everyone. I've spoken about that enough in other episodes. Don't need to go there today. But I just wanted to show you where I am, and why I am here actually has a lot to do with today's episode. And it's a very special episode because what brings me here is a relationship, and a very important relationship in my life. And it's something that very unexpectedly came into my life over the last, 6 months, I should say, since last April, since my last retreat, actually. And the story of how me and today's guest connected, and everything that sort of transpired from there, is a really magical one. I've never had someone come into my life and felt so divinely guided in so many ways. The synchronicities, the signs, the messages, it's insane. And our whole story of how we came together is going to be a story for another day, specific just to that kind of exchange. But I wanted to take time today to introduce you all to Tim. And Tim is a 4/6 mental projector. And mental projectors are very unique in even the realm of just the projector world. We have different types of projectors. And what makes the mental projector unique is that they only have their head and ajna and sometimes throat defined. Everything from the throat down, and in Tim's case, everything, including the throat down, is open. So they have this projector penetrating aura that brings them the gift of awareness and the ability to guide and to really provide improvements and see what, again, most others cannot see. It's still this outward focused, penetrative aura. However, that in their bodies, they have an immense amount of sensitivity. So it's almost like this reflector projector hybrid where they're so sensitive and in tune to their environment. And that gives them so much information that they get to chew on and bring into the guidance that they provide. But it also, again, comes with a lot of sensitivity and a lot of challenges. Knowing that they're that much more sensitive to their environment can also show how much more sensitive they are to conditioning, to outside influence. And Tim is from Switzerland. So from this beautiful, beautiful place, this beautiful country that has brought him so many things. His childhood just automatically being raised amongst nature and having so many sports and outdoor activities to do that really, really fed him and kind of propelled him into the career and the space that he's in now. And at the same time, Switzerland and the culture here has a lot of rigidity to it. There is a lot of pressure and expectation around success, around financial stability. Even just in the 2 weeks that I've been here, I already feel how uncomfortable it makes people to hear my sort of story or how I live my life today, where I don't know where I'm going to be 6 months from now, let alone 3 months from now. I live very by the moment. I have my own business that I run in a very non-traditional way, and that makes a lot of people here very uncomfortable. So you can imagine that someone with as much sensitivity as a mental projector being in this environment, they have a tendency or a susceptibility to take a lot of that in. And if they live their lives from that pressure, that expectation, that conditioning, it's going to very quickly push that sensitive projector into misalignment and into burnout. So on today's episode, Tim shares his story, where he comes from, and a lot of beautiful wisdom that he's collected along the way, going through multiple different jobs. He worked as a carpenter. He worked as a police officer. He's worked as a strength and conditioning coach, and how all of his life experience, he's also a sixth line. So a lot of trial and error, pushing himself to the limit, pushing himself to extreme burnouts, having to constantly redirect. And up until this point in his life, it's been a lot around chasing material success and chasing what is expected of him, or chasing what he thought that he should be following up on. And now, for the first time, he's really taking a step back and asking himself, what really matters? Who am I? And how do I want to show up in the world? And I'm basically just, stepping off the hustle train, for lack of a better term, which is necessary. Even though projectors are here to guide, even though our signature is success, there's no guarantee that we actually accomplish that in this lifetime. Because if we just stay plugged into the program and try and push ourselves to operate as generators, as sacral energy types, and push ourselves to the limit, we'll never actually tap into the awareness and the gifts that we're here to share with the world. And so the reason I'm also really excited about introducing you all to Tim is because he's someone who really made an impact on me when I first met him in person, which was actually at our last retreat in Portugal this past April. And I went into it with a lot of curiosity already, because I had seen his design and I had seen the uniqueness, and I was very curious because I had never really met a man projector who was living in alignment with their design. And even though Tim had never heard of human design, this was his first time kind of looking into it. And even though in a lot of ways he was still not quite trusting his mechanics or recognizing himself in the gifts that he has, I could feel there was something different about his energy and his aura. And when we first did our human design reading before the retreat, the level of presence, the level of intention, I could feel the penetration of his aura. And I was really curious to see that in real life. And I was blown away by his presence and just the way he even interacted with our retreat participants, the way that he so quickly just became this safe space for people going through a lot of intensity. Our retreats are no joke, and they are focused on deep transformation. And the way that he opened up, and not even opened up himself individually, but his energy, the way that it almost just knocked on the other participants' doors and said like, okay, you're safe here. Like, you can share. What do you need? And watching that ripple effect was really incredible. And I personally, I spend so much of my energy focusing on others, guiding others, working with others. It's just, I don't focus on myself all too often. And to have the light turned around and to have someone really intensely seeing me. And I have this with my other girlfriends and girlfriend projectors and such, but from a man, it's something I had never experienced before. And it's that very kind of intention and energy that has now blossomed into something much more. And I'm just very grateful for Tim and his presence in my life. And having seen also the transformation this man has experienced since discovering his human design, and being able to see just how magical he is for himself. And he shares about this in the episode about how he didn't believe it. He didn't recognize himself. He would, people would give him compliments or share with him just what an impact that he had on them, and just kind of shrug it off. Like, oh, the classic projector thing of like, but everybody sees what I see, right? Everybody operates the way that I operate. And, this system, as it does with everyone, it's just that permission slip and a way in which you can see yourself more deeply, which is so important, especially for projectors who aren't really here to see themselves. They're here to see others anyways. And yeah, the transformations, even just in the last few months, as he started to notice and witness the mind and how he'd been operating for so long from the mind, fed by this conditioning that he's experienced his entire life, and choosing to step back and do differently, act differently, trust in himself, trust in a higher power, and the invitations that are starting to flow that just changes. The whole reason we're in this beautiful part of Switzerland is because of this process, this surrender and letting go and trusting the unknown, taking the leap into the unknown. And his story is just a real testament of how owning and trusting and recognizing your uniqueness, seeing the magic within yourself, that alone sets you free. It sets you free from this idea of having to live a certain way, having to make certain decisions just because that's what's expected of you. And it opens up this world of potential of seeing life as this playground and trusting that you get to choose what direction you go, and you get to choose what you invest your energy into, and you get to choose the results that you get because of it. So anyways, this is very long-winded and I'm kind of talking in circles at this point, but the whole doing an introduction outside and in this style is, again, new to me, and I'm just always distracted by this. Are you kidding me? And like I said, this will be the first of likely follow-up episodes as well, because there's some really good stories that I can share with you about our connection. And yeah, without further ado, I'll let you guys all get into this episode with Tim. Again, Tim is a strength, conditioning, mobility, CrossFit coach. All of those labels do not do justice at all to what it is that he does. And having trained with him and witnessed the way that he works with people, again, it goes to show how unique the projector aura is. And he just has this incredible way with people and of seeing people and seeing their bodies and seeing the way that their bodies move and being able to provide such specific, personalized, individualized guidance And yeah, it's magic. This is a magic guest, as are all of our guests. And I'm excited for you all to meet him.
Alrighty.
Comfy?
Do I look alright to you? It's your podcast.
No, you must change. Well, this is going to be your first ever podcast. How do you feel?
I'm happy to be on it. Possibly a little nervous. Never done it before, knowing that it's going to go on air, but I'm happy to be here speaking to you.
Amazing. Well, I think there's probably a lot of topics that we could talk about. That being said, I want to start by spending the time kind of giving a little bit of context about who you are. And first and foremost, reason number one why I would like to have you on the podcast is because I think you're one of the first projectors, male projectors, that I consciously met, knowing obviously you were a projector going into meeting you, who I was able to witness existing very in alignment with themselves. And obviously, I mean, you came to our retreat, and coming into an experience like that, people are searching for transformation and change and finding more alignment. And a lot of that has happened since then. But even at that experience, like it was the first projector that I got to witness and be like, wow, this is really something. And that being said, yeah, I just want to open up the space and give you a chance to share your story a little bit and where you come from and where you're going.
Pleasure. Where do you want me to start?
I guess the first place is obviously just like childhood and where you come from. And I want to start that off by saying, as projectors, we often come into this world feeling a little bit alien. And I know, like, after I learned my human design and going back to the way I was raised and seeing like all the different ways I kind of tried to be something that I wasn't, and remembering from the time I was very young that like I felt different. I felt a little bit like an outsider. And then, of course, I made a lot of decisions growing up to try to not feel that way, which led me down the course that my life kind of took me. But I guess I can start there.
So, grew up in a family of 6, 4 siblings. So 2 twin sisters and 1 younger brother. And I mean, most of my childhood was pretty much a happy childhood. Very much interested in just being all about fun, movement. I was just happy as long as I could get my hands on different things. It could be work related, such as building, cutting wood, stacking it up, helping in the forest, or possibly later as I went through teenhood, I was working in a farm with horses and machines, and really enjoyed that. And just movement. My parents had me do lots of different sports, different activities, solo, group. I used to play from very young in the soccer team. But next to that, I was also in a swimming team. And next to that, I was also doing judo. And those were the things I enjoyed most. I was in parallel also following up on some singing classes that I enjoyed a bit less. Having said that, I've always wanted to be able to play the guitar. And to this day, I still don't. I tried piano, but that was another story. Just very, very active, I would say, just enjoying being out in the woods a lot of my time, running with my father, biking with my father and my brother. Then we had dogs, so we were out and about taking care of the dogs. We would just go out with my brother. I remember just playing, as I call it. We would kind of dress up, and imagine going through the forest with our hunting hound, and we would just run after. We were the Indians, so we would be running after like cowboys. So we would have bows and arrows, and we would be shooting through the forests for game and cowboys, and we would create our own journeys and adventures as we went along, and we would just spend hours and hours out there running through the woods up and down. So yeah, just playing, having fun was a big part of my childhood, and I never really ever thought about what I would be wanting to do next. And then through teenhood, I got to, as I mentioned before, just work in a farm with horses, a lot of horse riding, and very quickly in charge also because of one of the only male figures around there. So I was just in management, if I may say, of getting to muck out, making sure the horses had their food, and then I had a team under me that I could manage so that they would get the horses ready for the classes and make sure that every person coming to follow a class had someone looking after them and so on. And I would just take care of the general thing and mucking out, cleaning. That was a kind of like a daily thing, but I would be there every day. And then the extra time I had in my hands while I was there would be spent like farm activities. Like we would build houses. We would build whatever was needed within in the farm, and it could just take us from building construction to farming in the wood, well, in the fields, or like lumberjacking in the woods. Just very very open. And well, from that period of time, it then led me obviously to high school, college, where I again just kind of went through it, enjoying more so what I was doing without too much thought on what I would be doing next. And I think I think that's when things started to become a little tricky for me because like I was asked to give it a thought, and honestly I had no idea. I was always just so much in the moment and enjoying it and never really cared to think about what I would do next. And then I know it was a very caring thought, and they were looking out for me. As for my siblings, my parents had ideas, and they were like proposing. And what about following up on medicine, or what about following up on economy and business, or possibly they saw how I like to build stuff, so why not be an architect and follow up on that? So those were ideas that obviously I kind of gave a little thought to because I didn't have my own thoughts, and I just followed up on those. But then after that, yeah, just that search for a job as I started through adulthood and finished my college has been quite a journey by itself.
Yeah. And now, so Tim is a mental projector, and mental projectors are a very unique type of projector. There's many different types of projectors underneath that hat, and they're the most sensitive and open of the projector energy types. And obviously now you've learned a lot about your human design in the last 6 months, but being able to go back and knowing just how sort of like empathetic you are and how sensitive you are to your environment, do you feel like being at that pivotal age and not being sure about the direction that you want to take, do you feel like you just acted as like a sort of sponge, and in taking in all of these well-intentioned ideas, do you feel like that was the place in which you started to make decisions from? Whereas like prior to that, you were just happy-go-lucky, innocent, in the moment, connected to nature, in a beautiful part of the world where you had such freedom to just be yourself. And then all of a sudden catapulted into this pressure that you're taking in from the world around you. And as we always say in human design, it's like we're all taking in energy from the world around us. The problem happens, which again is not an inherently bad thing. It's a beautiful gift, actually. But the problem arises when we start to take the energy that we're taking in from the world around us and make decisions from that place, right? Because that's what is feeding our mind versus listening to our intuition. So do you feel like that was the time and kind of the contributing factor that sort of pulled you away from this magical, blissful childhood innocence and into more of an intense period of your life?
Very probably. So just maybe for the context, you mentioned growing up in a beautiful place. So yeah, Switzerland, I must say, is a beautiful place to be, and like born here, did my schooling here, and also like there's a structure, a very like rigid structure probably. I don't know how it is really in other countries. Education is given right everywhere, but I just remember kind of going through this and fighting it. Um, and obviously getting to the age where, yeah, I had to choose to do a job, to find what works for me and where was I going to spend the next 50 years of my life. And well, that was kind of, the general idea of what was given. And very quickly, I was confronted to the fact that I didn't want that for myself. And just kind of coming back to that childhood where it was innocent, it was fun, it was play. But looking back at it now, I think that's the best thing I could have ever had because I was just truly present. And then it's obviously then later that the mind started to play tricks on me in the way that I was thinking from places of scarcity. I was anxious. I was frustrated because I wasn't reaching targets that people were setting for me. My education from my parents, but also my school, kind of led me along the path of you have to be a nice person and you have to please whoever is around you. And so I was very much a people pleaser, and without really taking too much time to think about myself or what I ever wanted to do. But as long as I did good in the world around me and I was pleasing, I would, in my head at that time, just assume that I was happy. And it's only little by little that as I went for my first job, then I was like, well, this is not appealing to me. That I'm not pleased at all, and I don't see myself doing this not even a year. But having said that, I said, what should I do? Like people are expecting me to follow this up, so am I going to do it or not? And I had huge struggles, especially the first time where I just took that decision to quit when everybody was expecting me to follow through. And say, oh, this is perfect for you. This is what you need. This is what you're doing. What everything you did earlier in your teenhood just leads you to this. It's perfect. It's what you want. But no, it's what they wanted. And finally, that first time, I just said, no, I don't want this. I'm changing. And like now looking back at that, I think it was the best thing I ever did because it allowed me to then look deeper. And then every time that followed from that was another moment in my life where I decided for myself to quit something. And at the start it was quitting, but making sure I had something following up. Mm-hmm. Whereas now this leap of faith basically is something that I can take just based on the awareness of my own body and whatever I feel. If it just feels like I'm going against my own self, well, there's no point in continuing along that path. And I will be able to take the jump without knowing where I'm actually landing. But I think all of this was built on that first time where I had to just decide that, okay, I'm not feeling in alignment at all with what everybody's expecting for me.
Yeah.
And I decided to expect for me rather than for others.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think your path and trajectory, it really sets the scene for like what I think so many projectors in this world experience, because again, we are a unique breed within ourselves living in a generator world. And we come in and yes, many people can have really blissful experiences growing up. Some people don't. I also luckily did. I had a lot of play. I had a lot of sports. Like for me, life was really good until, my 20s, I would say, because that's when it caught up to me. But then kind of getting into this loop or this cycle of trying to keep up and trying to do what people expect us to do, trying to follow that mold that we see around us until it pulls us deep into a period of burnout, right? You experienced that with yourself and in the police force, and then again having to kind of like switch. But watching you now, and obviously I've gotten to know you very well because he's my boyfriend. And I've seen the way that you see others. Like I've seen the impact that you have on others. And projectors, like we're designed mechanically, our energy is outward oriented. We can't see ourselves. We're here to see the other. That's why we are guides. That's why we have this path of providing guidance and mentorship and to be able to see improvements around us, but not so much for ourselves, but for others. And it's really hard for us to see ourselves. And I know for you, prior to the retreat, I don't think you had a clue that you had what you have within you that you're just now starting to see in the way that your clients kind of revere you and the way that I've reflected certain things back to you. But where was I going with this? The process of stepping into that role as a guide, it's like we have to recognize ourselves in order to get there. So it's if we stay on the same rat race over and over again, and we're constantly making the decisions from the mind, listening to the scarcity, listening to those voices that tell us, we have to have a life that looks a certain way in order to be successful, in order to have the things that we think that we want. As projectors, we will never step into our purpose. And this is something I always tell people in human design. It's like you have these certain attributes that can tell you this is what you're here to do, but there's very much a reality in which you never actually get there, right? Human design is a system of decision making. And if we don't make the right decisions for ourselves, we won't ever step onto that trajectory and onto that path that's designed for us. And I think you're having a really incredible experiment and experience over these last 6 months of like seeing and feeling the visceral difference when you step off the mind game and start trusting your intuition and start trusting your design. And it's also not an easy process. And maybe you can speak to that of like having learned about yourself a little bit more through this process and through human design, through the retreat, and then getting into that kind of like sticky in between where you're like, okay, I can recognize these things or I can know these certain strategies, but like my mind really, really doesn't like this. How do you navigate, or how have you been navigating that discomfort and transition?
First of all, like the retreat was indeed a catalyst, if I may say. Prior to the retreat, I've already gone down quite a few like lanes by myself, just reading up on different things, feeling and experiencing a lot and stuff that I didn't necessarily understand. I recognized everything that I lived as being true to me and to whatever I was living, even though I was incapable of making sense out of different of those experiences. So having some kind of awareness about the physical, the emotional, but also the spiritual, and maybe just touching up on that, I have not necessarily followed up on faith young, even though my parents took us to church, but I kind of pulled away from it, not seeing any sense or any support from God or Jesus or the church. And then especially later growing up, I just kind of recognized how the church was, for me, something that was more like an institution for people to go to and provide some sort of guidance, but it wasn't the guidance that I was expecting. And it was more for me kind of a trap hole, not saying anything bad about it, but definitely just like how some of these institutions play with the faith of people and kind of just get them looped into some other way of thinking. And so I just pulled away from it. But then little by little, just coming back to realizing that something bigger was there, and it wasn't just me against the world in a way. And I would speak up. I would speak out to what I called Mother Nature at first, and universe, and um, just realizing that a lot of energy was there around me. And like I said, just following up in these different energies and reading about it and meeting people who also brought me a lot of understanding of different topics and so. And then just up to this year, 2024, I think I have done, if I may say, a solid groundwork. And then the retreat was indeed something that was kind of unexpected, nothing that I had on my radar, but it was just like knowing Tom. Tom was there, and he mentioned it, and I was like, oh well, great, this is a cool way to actually spend time with him. And then whatever comes, and I've mentioned it with a smile to you before, I actually thought we were doing a surf retreat, right? So yeah. I'm very pleased now looking back at it that it was not that kind of retreat, and that it was something deeper, where I really was able to go further in understanding who I am. Because, well, you mentioned it, human design. With my profile, I understood so much, having had the opportunity to chat with you and meet other like-minded people also. Just being able to see how I have functioned over these past years and many different experiences, and realizing why I reacted in one way rather than another. And also seeing, well, that I was following by default, but I was actually pulling away from my actual true self and not following my human design. And so that has been very helpful as a tool to kind of use adequately in the now. These past few months have been a huge shift, I would say, because I was aware of things and I was able to just speak about it openly to myself and recognize and learn and grow from it and let go. I think a lot of the process was being able to let go, even though prior to that, a lot of things had already been acknowledged, but I hadn't actually fully let go of all of that. So indeed, I mean, you mentioned the police. That was a very good experience to have, because I learned so much in regards of how I interact with my environment and with people, and how people among themselves react. So policing is seen as a very physical job in a way, because we're physically on the streets, and people see it mostly as like a cowboy, modern cowboy kind of activity. But there's more to it, definitely is. And I took away a lot of like the psychology part of the job, which has been very, very constructive in a way.
How did you then move or shift into the line of work that you're in now with strength conditioning, personal training, CrossFit, all of that?
Well, as I mentioned before, like sport and movement and various activities have been a very big part of my life already as a kid. And I kept that up, even though I was going through other things and trying to find a place within society. But I always kept moving, doing sports. And 18 years old, I got involved in ski instruction. Just slightly before, I was also a lot into fitness, alone by myself, no coach, nothing, but just into fitness, getting to feel and learn about my body and what I was physically capable of doing. In that process, I realized like how physically sometimes I would come to an edge and would plateau and would not be capable of moving forward until I came to grip with the whole emotional part of it too. And just realizing how, when I would step into my training session, if I was in a happy mood or if I was in a sad mood, let's say, it would just change the whole direction of my training. So with that, then like incorporating that understanding of my body capabilities and emotional capabilities, I was able to reproduce that into my coaching as a ski instructor. And basically, as I went on in that ski club, I then followed up also on CrossFit equally for myself. Then slowly just going into training others. So I followed up with various educations in CrossFit, in nutrition, as a PT coach equally. And yeah, there's always going to be a book to tell you how to go through it and to earn your certificate. But then from that, I also evolved with my own experience and way to approach the body and the mind. And for me, it all boils down to awareness. And I've been trying to figure out how I could potentially bring that out. And well, awareness, you kind of look at the more physical and tangible parts of it. So it's like related to nervous system, but the nervous system, how does it interact then with the rest of the body parts? Then you have the fascias that come on top of that, all the muscles, and like just knowing the body and how it's built and what every part of the body is actually capable of doing. And then when you get all of those linked together, how will you then perform a movement? And it's not just like biomechanics. Like that movement can be two different movements depending on your emotional state. And are you aware of it or are you not aware of it? And that's basically what I try to bring into my coaching and into helping people along their path, is just seeing them grow with more body awareness and seeing them manage better quality movements also improves their self-confidence. They get to be more courageous also, not just in their training, but in their actual life, and then how they present themselves to the world in their work, in their families, in their social relationships. And these are all things that I've witnessed. So just seeing already how it affected me, and then how witnessing it with others, for me, and there's no doubt, like I'm never going to turn away from this. Probably there's many ways of me to bring it out and help people do it, but this is my way of approaching movement and just emotional states, understanding, just the being. And I think just being is probably very much underrated nowadays. When you speak to someone, you say, so who are you? And most of the people will answer like, oh, I'm a carpenter, or I'm a lawyer, but I've had just recently the last person I spoke to, and I just asked her, so new person in my class, and took some time to be with her and just ask her who she is and what she does. And I specified, I don't want to talk about your job. But and the person was actually startled and just said, well, what do you want me to say? I said, just anything that comes to your mind. What makes you happy? And then what are your activities? Anything. And having that wider window for the person to answer, first of all, I saw a smile pop up on her face, and she started speaking about her dog, and then her horse, and then how she loved being with the two of them and going out into nature. And she never spoke about her job. She then linked it later with what she's passionate about and the understanding of the body, of the mind and the people and the social interactions. And then I was able to know and come up onto what she actually does for a job. But it wasn't the first response, and that just goes to show how we're so cooped up in a mold, a mold that everybody kind of just follows blindly and without really thinking about themselves and who are we, but who am I?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And just to hype you up a little bit, I do think that intentionality, like that is one of your superpowers. And that was something that I saw in your energy at the retreat starting. But to just go back a couple of days, I had the pleasure of joining you at basically like a farewell workout at the gym that you've been working at for
roughly since January.
Since January. Yeah. And you're stepping away from that gym since you'll be moving across the country. And so this was like a farewell workout to basically say goodbye and give people an opportunity to spend some time with you and enjoy a class. And I mean, there was like almost 30 people that had shown up, and this isn't a huge gym by any means. And of course, I mean, I was just witnessing, I was just observing the entire experience and seeing the impact that you had on each individual person. Like it was personal to them. It's not that, oh, they're just losing some fun, charismatic coach from the gym who comes and just does classes and it's a fun time. The way that you coach, and this is because of your energy, because of the way that you see people, it's every single person has been so deliberately moved by your awareness. And that's what projectors are here for. It's like we're not selling our energy, right? There's a difference between you as a coach and even someone like Tom, right? And Tom is amazing mobility coach. There's a reason why we bring him into our retreats and everything that we do, because he's fantastic at what he does and he has an immense amount of energy that he can share very widely, and
It's contagious.
it's contagious. And he's an incredible coach, but there's a big difference between a coach and a guide. And so whereas Tom is selling his energy, what you're providing is your awareness and your focus and this personalization. And the projector aura, whereas the generators have this embrace of an aura, their entropic field, which is, again, our energy doesn't end at our skin. We have this 3 to 7 foot aura, this entropic field that impacts our environment when we're in it. And the generators have this warm, magnetic, open aura that acts as like a hug, bringing people into their embrace. Whereas the projector has this penetrative, almost like a cone-shaped aura that is going into the other. And in doing so, that's how we're able to pull the information that we're able to pull with our awareness. And going to that class, seeing that in action and just seeing, I mean, there were people that were crying, that you were crying. Like
Don't get me started.
it was such an intimate moment. And it goes to show the difference in the impact that you have on people individually. And you're not just a coach. You don't just come and give a class and give people movement. It's like you are taking the time, whether you know it or not, to like really observe the body and see and give these subtle tweaks and changes that completely shift someone and their perspective and how they move their body. And then they carry that away into their lives and into everything they do moving forward. And it's a really magical thing to see. And I know that it's something that you didn't always see in yourself. And this is the classic kind of projector kryptonite of sorts, is we don't realize just how potent that awareness is. And we think that everybody sees what we see. And it's just not the case at all. And one thing I shared with you the other day is I come from a very kind of like elite performance sports background. And I've had some of the top athletic training, especially as it relates to like strength and conditioning. And when I ended that competitive career, I really moved away from training, mostly because I never resonated with the coaches that I would, if I was joining a class per se, it always just felt like, again, there was no personalization. And I already have such a strong foundation and understanding of how the body moves. So if I'm seeing something and the coach isn't seeing it and they're not providing the right corrections, I don't trust them inherently. So I'm like, why would I train with them? I can just do my own thing. And you're one of the first people that I've come across since leaving that environment where I am reminded as to why I love moving the body and training the body and the awareness, because again, you can provide me with things that I don't see. And I forgot what that felt like in this environment. And it's such a gift and it goes so beyond the body. And I think that's something you also have such an awareness around, of like, it's not just about the body, and how the body is almost like an entry point, and we can start to work on our physical fitness. But through working with our physical fitness, we can actually access our mental fitness, our spiritual fitness, and it bleeds so far beyond that. And I think that's kind of what you provide in the style of coaching that you deliver.
I think I do. That was just like a drop on me, but I do. I do want to recognize and say that, first of all, like, I have not seen all of my qualities over the past few years for sure. But again, it's something that was slowly coming to me because I had people around me who would recognize a wee bit of this, a wee bit of that, and I would take it with a bit of resistance to say, oh yeah, but no, they're just saying it to be nice. But little by little, you kind of like, okay, I'm actually good at this. Okay, cool. But I wouldn't necessarily follow up on any of it. And it's only for the past, I would say, year where I just kind of went all in understanding who I am, what I do well, what I do good, what am I passionate about, how do I want to show up for myself and for the world around me. So that has drastically changed my approach to my own life. Even though I was already aware of like what I didn't want in my life, how I didn't want to turn up every day and do a specific job for the rest of my years, and I was already aware of these few things. But now, definitely, I just know that, okay, I speak about lifestyle, but I'm actually making it happen, and it's not just about speaking about it and just letting it there in the open and not doing anything about it. It's like I I like to say I actually walk the talk, and what I preach is what I do. Sometimes I'll allow myself a little sweetness because it's always good to have, but then that's where you remind me where I'm standing. But just joke aside, I think I am pretty much aware of like a good way of approaching and balancing a life, let's say a healthy lifestyle, between the mind, the body, and the spiritual, just to simplify the three. So yeah, it's been an incredible journey to just witness who I am indeed, and be able now to actually speak about a experience that I had speaking with someone, what came out of it. Whereas up until now, let's say the past years, I would just say, oh, I had that talk, but probably any coach would have got that far with that person or whatever. But indeed, like just the time spent in Zurich the last year and working on my craft, working on me, and being surrounded by great people, I will say that much. And well, you mentioned it, that farewell workout was just a magical moment to be able to share it with all the people that I have been coaching. And I was a new coach in the gym, but very rapidly I saw how people got interested in what I was also saying. And I was so pleased to see how much energy they put into what they were doing also. And I saw so many people improve on little things, just like a shoulder rehab or back pain, or going from an actual accident, going through rehab, and then coming back even stronger than before and being able to lift barbells, weights, prepare for high rocks. It's like I've seen many people over the years. I've coached many people on I said, like skiing, in gyms, in CrossFits, PTs, group classes. But the last few months have been very revealing in many ways. And I like to say, maybe it's too humble of me, but I like to say that I'm only going to be a good coach, or as good coach I could be, depending on how the people respond to me also. If like people are not pulled or interested in what I'm saying, I will not get any feedback, and I won't grow either. Whereas the community that I grew with here in Zurich, well, let's say in CrossFit Horgan, definitely they've all made me grow as a person. So yeah, it was an emotional moment for me too, and I'll keep it in my heart for a very, very long time.
So, what would you tell someone who is kind of going through a transition themselves and they're feeling a lot of fear and anxiety around making a big change, or let's say like quitting a job where they've had a lot of financial stability and security, but it's destroying them, and they want to go and do something that they're passionate about, but they have all the voices in their head telling them, I can't, you shouldn't, it's irresponsible, what will people think of you?
So maybe just to also provide a little context here, based on what you just said, I went through that exactly. I mean, as a police officer, I worked a few years. I had a good salary. I didn't have to care much about anything, and I mean, I could do what I wanted, but things just went a different direction. But nevertheless, like I just went along with it and took the hard decision to not come back, letting go of all that financial resource, and then everything that kind of leads on from that. But also in that decision making and taking, I also saw how following up on myself rather than material desires, or I wouldn't even call them needs, but just like the material aspects of my life, based on money income, weighed much less than my own sanity, my health, how I saw myself. And when I looked at my reflection in the mirror, who would I see? So I think, like, for anyone listening to this or in similar situations, just look at the mirror and, like, who is it that you see? Are you pleased with that reflection, or are you not? And what is the reason for either one or the other? Like, especially if you're not pleased, I would say, well, in that case, figure out what's holding you down, what's holding you back. And it's allowing yourself to take a leap of faith. And sometimes it's just as simple as going back to that childhood, that living in fun. It's all play, and we don't want to be too serious about it all, especially if that seriousness is coming from an external world, that is not yours. And we always know what we're leaving. We like it or we don't. And it's hard to project yourself into something unknown, but that same unknown can also provide you with so much more than what you actually have. So, yeah, especially if you're in an unhappy place, just jump, take the leap of faith.
What are some of the best things that unknown has brought you now that you've stepped into it?
Well, if I follow progressively a few things here, I came back to my own faith. Like I said, realizing that something bigger than myself was there, and I was never alone. So I openly speak now. Yeah, I have a relationship with God, and God is with me. And in any hard moment, I can always pray to Him, speak to Him, and it feels good just to know that I'm supported in any direction I decide to follow. And also, there is something that's been very, very important to me recently. It's just realizing that I do not control the outcome. I will give the direction, and that direction is given from a place of satisfaction, harmony, love, and joy. And that is my homework, if I may say. My daily homework is just to make sure that I stay in that place, and the rest will be provided to me, through and by God. Meeting Tom, we mentioned him before, so it just feels right to also just acknowledge how remarkable Tom is, and he's helped me a lot. So I've also gone through various injuries and accidents, and Tom has helped me along the way in many cases. And he's not just a mentor; he's a brother to me for sure. And I look forward to seeing you again, mate. And following up then on wanting to spend more time with Tom, it led me to the retreat. And well, I met you, and I'm very pleased about everything that came out from this retreat, just on my personal side. But then, like, as much as I like to consider myself a child, a kid in a good way, I like to play and I like to see life as play. I also see how much of a man I have become, and very grateful to be in this place now to acknowledge all of it. And obviously, being the man that I am, you've seen me, and I also saw you. So these are, let's say, a few things that have definitely come up from all of this unknown. And yeah, if you keep a door closed, you'll never know what's on the other side. But you can choose to open up the door. And if you're still not sure, well, don't go through it. Possibly another door will be down the road, and you'll have found the guts and the courage to go through that one. And yeah, that's what I would say about that much.
Amazing. And have there been any specific like practices that you have found to be very helpful as you've navigated certain transitions and change?
Well, for one, and you may have picked up on that one already, it's like movement. Movement is key to everything that you do. Movement is a healthy being, let's say, for the physical body. And from this movement, you can also go further into understanding the emotional part and the spiritual. There are various practices out there that help and combine different tools, if I may say. So just movement, and it can be through strength training or mobility. Mobility allows you to go deep into feeling tight, but that tightness is not just a physical tightness. It's a way of the body to say that there's something wrong, right? And if we're willing to go down that route, well, we can definitely understand what's lying underneath the surface, emotionally speaking, spiritually speaking, and just letting go of energy to be able to replenish and move better, and also just understand better energy parts of ourselves and how we interact then with the world. I would say breath work. I knew about it a little before. There's various types of breath work out there today. It's, if I may say, kind of a trend also, but among these trendy tools and manners and methods, there are also a few that are really, really impacting. And just to mention, the one that I've discovered is the 9D breathwork, which has brought me to amazing journeys, I would say, and understandings of myself, emotional parts, things that I thought I had overcome but were still underlying. I think also, depending on, I mentioned movement, but possibly just looking at yoga for some who like to do something a little softer, but are like already pulled to some of the emotional parts of themselves. Yoga is a nice way to go about it. And I mean, that's my bringing up, if I may say, but movement out in nature. And it can be slow, it can be competitive, it can be fast, it can be hard, but just being out in the nature is a very, very nice way to just come back to ourselves and just see how, at the end of the day, we're just a small part in this big world. And there's sometimes no point on wanting to overdo it, overthink it, because just like be in the environment that we're in and enjoy that energy. So yeah, as much as as much as we can, I think it's important that we spend time to go out, even if it's just for a 20-minute walk at the end of the day. But just we need to unwind. We need to feel that calling to nature and that presence around us. It's soothing. It's helpful.
Yeah, I agree completely. And I guess to kind of wrap things up, what are you feeling excited about at this moment? What are things on the horizon for you?
So mentioned slightly earlier was the fact that I'm moving. So moving because there was a calling to go back to skiing, and I just wanted to be more present for the kid that I coach. I could manage it from here. Did it last year, but I also felt far away from him, and I was like, okay, skiing is not just about coaching a kid in races. Charlie, just to mention him, deserves my full attention, especially since skiing is something that I'm passionate about, and I don't want to do things half. And I felt like if I didn't make the move, I wasn't able to provide as much attention and energy to that part of my life that I do want to follow up on. So very much excited to be able to get back to skiing with Charlie and seeing what comes for himself. It's funny because I may just be the instructor here, but I am very excited to see where that's going to lead Charlie. Charlie is an amazing boy, and he has huge potential, and I'm just so excited to see where he's going to go. It's not for me. I'm not going to be winning the medals or anything, but just to see how he is growing, knowing that I'm in the backstage of it, feels just amazing. So very, very excited for that. And equally on the side, also just following up on coaching. I feel pulled to continue that. And this answer might not answer or may answer everything. I don't know, but I'm not making too many plans. I'm kind of really going with the flow of things and just feeling well in every step of the moving and every business related decision and talk that has been taken with future partners, and just seeing, well, where do we align, and making sure that I am aligned with everything that we're talking about. So there is no concrete direction here. There's no definite plan, but for sure, I know that I am following up, and I'll try and stay humble here. I want to be a great coach, and probably in the back of my head, I just want to be the best at what I do and provide my skill and knowledge to help others. And that is what I'm going to be following up in the next few years. And however it comes across, well, like I mentioned before, God is the one who is going to provide all of these different opportunities, and I'm willing to follow up on all of it.
Well, that response just also goes to show how embodied you are within your design. And, you know, you have an undefined G center. So you're not here to have a fixed direction and to be following up on it. You know, you're here to trust, to surrender. You have innocence motivation. So the way your mind works as well is by default and by design, it's kind of hands off the wheel, trust, and let the invitations pull you and take you. And I really see that coming online for you in such a profound way. And all these invitations that are starting to come from your network. Tim's a 4-6 profile. So fourth line network, like that's where the invitations come from. And yeah, it's been a pleasure for me to witness, because as you said, you've really stepped into the man that you truly came here to be. And you're not someone who, again, is just taking in all the information, or like going to the breathworks and like, you know, wearing the personal development spiritual hat, but then not actually like stepping through the fire with the tools that you've taken in. Like, no, you're stepping through the fire and you're showing up for yourself. And despite, I think, the mental gymnastics that we'll never run from, like we'll never escape our mind. We'll never escape kind of like the not self, the conditioning, the pressures. But but it's what we do with it. And human design helps give us a language to understand how to work with that. And then we have to fill our arsenal of our toolbox, basically, with the things to combat the not self, the mind trying to pull us away. And you've done that with grace and with strength. And it's been a pleasure for me to witness. I'm very proud of you and excited to see where all of this leads you and us.
Me too. Thank you for having me today.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, as much as you've seen me grow, I've also been very surprised to see everything that you've been doing. And I'm very pleased to be here, grateful to be here today and witness also what you're leading forward with and how I get to be part of it too. So thank you.
Welcome. And for everyone listening, there will be another episode at another time talking about our relationship and how this came to be, because it is also a very wild, wild story. Wouldn't you say?
Let's say so. See you guys then. Thank you.